You know, not so ironically, in order to make space, I had to delete a video. That was me giving an explication of what would have been a case that I was filing. In another dimension, I'm like this badass prosecutor, and I've actually secured a lot of convictions. Unfortunately, it's always some other country. Literally! The crimes I'm investigating and the currents I'm on result in prosecutions of people in other countries, pretty much comparable to the exact positions that need to be targeted here. But somehow they do some sort of swap out or substitute compliance. And the United States never fucking complies. But they do in other countries. So, as dispiriting as I'm supposed to feel, I can't give up because somebody is actually doing what they need to do to secure their own country. I requested from the Delaware Attorney General a copy of a motion. I was told I could do so online. It said you could contact the Delaware Attorney General. They'll send you a copy of the motion. The motion was filed by former Attorney General Beau Biden. It had to do with an $850 million settlement concerning fraud connected to the 2008 banking bailout. It was dated for 2011. November 2016, there was a public notice that the El Cajon Dam in Honduras was connected to the primary energy interest in Honduras and was putting forth a request for solicitation of bids on bonds for that dam valued at $850 million. I saw it. I wrote a response at the time. I felt like somebody was trying to solicit me to agree to help with financing it. And I said, I just submitted information to the Department of Justice. I just contacted Congress couple months ago and asked them to investigate matters connected to this. I couldn't possibly support financing an $850 million bond deal for a hydroelectric project in a country under circumstances connected to what I had just asked the Department of Justice and Congress to investigate. That evidence and information was deleted very shortly thereafter. I was on the streets, things happened. In the next year, there were two bond issues, one for $700 million dollars and one for $150 million connected to that specific hydroelectric facility. I believe that there was a deal that was set up on the coup in Honduras in 2009. I believe there was a 10-year term. I believe that connected to that deal, that was not even primarily vested by people in Honduras, or at least not exclusively, that there was supposed to be a certain kind of geopolitical wrangling in certain countries in Central and South America that were supposed to have the long term impact of facilitating a regime change within the United States aimed at getting a specific person into the top position. Now, over time, depending on how things go, it may not all line up the way you want. You may have to cede every once in a while that somebody will step up for a temporary period of time. There's a lot of very important benchmarks that need to be worked with and that need to be met in order for certain outcomes to happen. And if certain benchmarks don't get met in those particular manners, it leaves open other options, right? And the point of the matter is that it's economically engineered, it's completely unconstitutional, and in the course of that, it involves strong arming or extorting other nations and the representatives of those nations into agreeing to cooperate with blatantly fraudulent and potentially nationally destabilizing activities. This is one of the reasons I believe that this imbroglio around the Venezuelan bond debt is evidence of bond fraud. It's fraud. It's not just fraud, it's fraud at a very high level. Following this $850 million in the form of two bonds, there was an announcement for an $850 million bond in October of 2018. I alerted some people to the situation going on there. I'm sorry, that was for $1.2 billion. There was $1.2 billion bond that was announced for 2 days, and then there was a $230 million bond for the third day. I let some people know. I tried to report it. Unfortunately, it involved the same banks and brokerages of concern. Shortly thereafter, there was an announcement for the same entity to have another bond issue. And by May 1st of 2018, they were issuing an $850 million municipal bond for the city that was the location of the engineering firm that worked on the dam in Honduras. Now, that engineering firm has a different name, but it's the same bank, and it's the same brokerage. Need I go on? I've talked several times. I've written on feeds. I put on my notice here. Every time one of these police shootings happens, there's either literally a pending municipal bond issue, or in the case of the Portland, there's literally delivery on a major pension deal. It's that precise. So you're willing to disappear opposition political leadership. You're willing to harvest their lives. You're willing to murder them if necessary. You're willing to defame them and engage them in completely fraudulent proceedings, including alleged FISA proceedings, including alleged medical treatment, in order to run rationales connected to a completely treasonous plot that involves undermining the national security and the constitutional process of numerous other nations, including nations that you say you support or are in solidarity with? Okay. What is the most sexy nation on the planet? What would be the sexiest nation on the planet to effectuate a regime change based on the will of the people? I believe that whatever the deal was related to the coup in Honduras did not go as it was supposed to. I believe there's a very, very narrow window of time before it's actually defaulted. That they actually failed their coup flip. I think that's kind of where we are right now. How do you hold a government accountable without conceding to, allowing yourself to be privy to and participant in an intentionally orchestrated, engineered paradigm aimed at undermining rule of law, constitutional process, or anything valorous or valuable about your country or your community? They keep upping the ante. Every time I go for one thing, they want something bigger, they want something bigger, they want something bigger. Who's in charge of the broadband right now? Who's got 6.1, right? I apologize if my former travel to Honduras allowed for the kind of benchmarking that enabled other people, including state operators, to set up the political assassination of people that were considered to be opposition of the regime in order to finance weapons deals. And I'm sorry that the people in the United States are so addicted to drugs that they refuse to admit that's what's going on. I apologize for that. But in the process, I have developed a zero tolerance, and now it's not sufficient to think about this from some sort of altruistic leftist perspective of democracy building in a form of conventional social political protest. I want to know, when are you going to shut down the weapons companies that have murdered people and stolen our lives in order to create weapons that nobody seems to want to acknowledge they're using? See, this is what COVID-19 is. It is an effort to harvest people on one level, to steal their lives and send it to someone somewhere else. You know this. You know this is what it is. There are certain people that it's okay to steal from and to send somewhere else. You hit the wrong side. You hit the wrong side.